Exactly. It's like somebody who's like, what? There's like leaves falling. It's autumn time, you know. But yeah, I think this, while it's a good song, it's just for what I'm working on. It just wouldn't work. I mean, imagine sort of like I don't remember what the movie was, but you know, imagine like some Seth Rogen comedy, you know, probably something like that, where it's like, you know, they're getting crazy shit is happening, they're getting drunk, and like, yeah, they're breaking through a wall or something, whatever it is.
There's a slow-mo group walk scene.
Slow-mo group walk scene, yes, exactly. So what I would also say is when you're submitting tracks, and you know, not a lot of times are people, I try to, but you know, example tracks I think are very helpful because you can listen to the song and say, okay, this song sounds like this. Like, do I have songs that sound like this? And if you don't, that's fine. I would rather you not submit something than submit something that just doesn't work. You know what I mean? Because it's just as wasting my time, it's wasting my producer's time. And in these situations, we're just really trying to nail something. And you know, if you're just sending a song that you like, or sometimes it's the single or whatever it is, and it doesn't work, it gums up the work. So I would highly recommend like listening to the example and trying to get close to that.
And just a quick note on that, like as a pitch person, like if you don't have a song that'll nail it, like not only will it probably not go forward, but also you're lessening that music supervisor's confidence in your ability to nail it next time.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
they might not send you the search next time because you didn't get it.
Yeah, I totally appreciate when you email back real quick, but just like, sorry, we don't have you on this one, hopefully on the next, and then it's like, oh, cool.
And I always prefer getting those as opposed to
Nothing.
no response.
Yeah, I'm like, I know that I read my email.
Did you get that? Is that going to junk or something?
That's fascinating because we have other music supervisors who are like, no need to reply to tell us you don't have anything.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe those are people who send it out to 100 people, but if you're sending an
But how do
email
they
out
know? They don't
to
know.
5,
No, so I mean,
it's like, I
so
might be
point
sitting around
being-
waiting for your response,
Right.
thinking that you're working on it.
Point being lesson is everyone has their own way of working and their own personality, and you have to get to know all of them. It's a big job.
Yeah.
That's often why you hire someone to represent your catalog. I mean, I
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Like Terrorbird.
No,
Like
it's
Terrorbird.
What works for Mary or Danny or Todrick, you know, from how they like to interact with, you know, pitch companies is going to be very different than how I like to interact with them. We all have our own personalities and our own quirks.
So
Some people are still only taking CDs.
Right.
Who's taking
that?
CDs?
Nobody's-
Chop Shop is only taking
No,
CDs.
they find
My
they
computer-
find- they
They
find
around.
them.
My
I don't even
computer
have a
doesn't have a
CD
drive anymore.
Nonsense.
Cassette tapes.
Heather mentioned sending out searches to a bunch of people. Like I don't send out many searches. When I do, it's kind of to a larger group because I'm looking for things. You know, I have a very well organized music server and an assistant that keeps me up to date on everything that comes in. So I'm not wandering for much. When I send out a search, I'm just sort of looking for ideas and things that kind of spark my brain. And this one is a very specific one. But you know, you're getting into so many emails, and that's why it's just really important to like nail it or have nothing. Don't send anything.
Because your awesome song will have another opportunity. These things
Yeah.
are like, we get searches,
All the time.
you guys get probably like, how many searches a day do you get from different
I mean, like,
supervisors?
Like at least like a dozen? Probably?
Yeah, so I
Which
mean,
is
it's
a lot.
daily, it's constant.
Okay. This is Afrosonics, jet powered. Afrosonics?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Breaking news.
That's one that I would put forward. I think the vibe is there. I would, same as Heather, like I have another playlist that I sort of am like, yes, no. That would go forward. I mean, I think it's a great tune. I think for that search, it would definitely work.
If I was in that poll, I would probably ask you for the stems.
For sure.
Some of the stuff's a little busy with
Yeah,
the
with
saxophone.
and stuff. Yeah.
So you'd be like, oh, cool. We'll maybe break into that. You know, the guitar solos usually don't fly.
Yeah. Solos are
But the tempo on that is great.
The tempo is great. The vibe is great. Yeah. Instrumentally, we would want to mess with some things. But.
Do you guys know what we're talking about when we said stems?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's the, yeah, I just, we said it yesterday.
Yeah. Just the multi-track. All of your elements.
Yeah, let us
And we make our own.
So that they can remix your track to fit, to mold to the picture.
I mean, you guys don't care. You guys don't care, right? It's just like, not like it's...
It's not like
You're
you're,
like
it's not like you spend a lot of time
crafting
digging.
anything,
It's not like you're
Not as long as you pay us.
Right.
Yeah, see, it's not like
And once again,
Yeah,
we'll do this one and that one.
Yeah, look at that
Money for everybody, because they do trailers, so
So-
they have money.
So there's 3 songs that were submitted for this, and I think this is a pretty good, I think 1 out of the 3, it's a pretty good ratio in terms of like what would typically go forward. So good about that.
Cool. All right, so Todrick, you tend to work on a lot of things that are like apocalypse, adventure, haunting female vocal type of thing. Is
Yeah,
that,
we get a lot of dark shit.
yeah, a lot of dark shit. So the searches that you sent were a fantasy adventure film, looking for stuff about like war. You were looking for a sci-fi disaster film with lyrics about like the end of the world, or a superhero project.
About something
Looking
about the end of the
for,
world?
yeah, correct.
All of the day's work.
Yeah, you're right. This
Yeah,
one
I
also
s-
says end of the world.
Yeah, I spend most of my day soundtracking the end of the
Very
world.
dark.
Your playlists want to make me want to jump out of window.
Yeah, when the end
That's when
times
you know
come,
you're doing right.
my Spotify playlist is going to be your soundtrack.
So lit,
You're gonna be
so
like,
lit.
this is the shit. We're happy. It's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do.
So, do you want to do the fantasy adventure or?
Yeah, that one's cool because it's kind of gothy and more music.
Okay, cool. So can you tell us a bit more about what it was that you were looking for?
Yes, so this was for the King Arthur campaign, which is here. What's happening?
The chair.
Okay. Okay, so this is for King Arthur. So here's my brief. Working on a campaign for a fantasy adventure film, looking for mystical, dramatic, mysterious, moody, dark, and driving songs to define the campaign. Send us your gothy modern builders, dynamic tracks with interesting driving percussion. Examples of the kinds of stuff we're thinking are artists like Fever Ray, Zola Jesus, Chelsea Wolfe, Esmond the Witch, Grinderman, Susie, etc., etc. Stuff that tonally is dark and edgy, but also otherworldly with a dark magic vibe. We're open to indie and mainstream artists alike, lyrically stuff that will play over scenes of sorcerers and monstrous snakes and war elephants, knights in battle, wizards and druids and swords. Lots and lots of swords. Other lyric themes that are appropriate are songs about war, kingdom, rise, take the crown, becoming, take the throne. I give good brief.
That's a great.
You really do.
I was gonna
I take pride in
add,
my brief.
more often, I mean, for the world that you guys are in, you can't even say the name of the project.
Most
you
of
would
the
never
time,
know what the movie
yeah, like so usually we don't say it. Like the only time I ever bust out the names, where I ever break that rule, is when I'm like, I really want the assets, like I want the stems, and I want them fast.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, guys, just this is for Justice League. Yeah. And then like, okay, cool, now I get them. Like,
Whereas when we're working on something, we can say, this is for this project, so that having that information provides a picture and context for the folks on the other side. That's why I bring it up.
and often I'll do in those briefs is also I'll include a YouTube link or a Spotify link to a song that I think is in the ballpark of what we're looking for. And it may be a song that I'm actually pitching as well. Like sometimes I'll get stuff where I'm like, I'll send us an example and they're like, oh, why don't you just use that song? I'm like, well, I'm pitching it, but I need more because they're probably not gonna like it, you know. And because for us, the steps that music has to get through to get approved is like, it's an insane gauntlet. Like, you know, it gets through me, it gets to my editor, my producer, it gets to our client, it gets to the producer of the film. Sometimes even the star of the film has a say in what the music of the campaign is. There's so many layers that it can get through where there's a chance for someone to say, nah, I hate that, you know. And so I'm always amazed when something happens.
I can't believe trailers exist.
So my other secret is I use a program. I don't want to like advertise, but there's a program called Snapper that I use, because I don't use iTunes for searching. I actually don't use iTunes for anything except for converting stuff to AIS on YouTube. Oh, you did? Okay, so but Snapper's great because it shows me a waveform. And so when I'm looking at a waveform, I can see where all these changes are happening, where your break is, where the big ending is, where the open is, all that stuff I see. So I'm flying a little bit blind with this, but that's how I usually go. That's great. I mean, so that track, like, vibe-wise, the beat's cool. I have an editor who does all this rhythmic cutting stuff, and he would love to have all those, like, tick, 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 all that stuff he could build. And we would probably take the stems from that session, take the one drum piece, and then add in elements, and he would get his cut would get more frantic as the cut went on. It's got a really cool kind of otherworldly rhythm to it, and it's got that kind of like almost Middle Eastern kind of thing happening. And all that stuff's really good. It's a little bit one note as far as like once it kicks in, I can tell that like from going through that it kind of stays static. I was hoping for the back end would kind of break out and be something bigger. It seems like it doesn't really, from where I yeah, it's kind of maybe. I think with the stems, the vocal is a little bit weird for me. I don't know if I'd be able to use it, but instrumentally, I think it would definitely make it into a folder. Whether it got used or not, I don't know. But it's cool.
It's a rad piece of music, yeah.
It's really cool.
So looking at the waveform helped inform your decision making, that you could see that it wasn't building?
Yeah, I mean it's funny because like it's a trick. I mean if you can mix when you're mastering it to make sure that it's not just one solid bar across, that really helps me. And I actually have editors that are super lazy that won't they don't have net currently. Everyone else is amazing. But in the past I've had editors where they literally pulled it into their Avid and just saw the thing like nah, didn't even listen. And you're like, oh come on dude, it's just the waveforms. Don't be so crazy. But that happens. That was called Mania Digimaster. And I don't know how to look at things in this.
There you go. Here, go to view.
What's the Apple?
Command.
Oh, this is terrible.
Just
What do I do?
hit the command.
I did that. It's not doing it. Now I'm being all sweaty. What are you doing? Oh, there's no fucking metadata anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's...
There's no metadata.
So I don't know what the artist was.
Yeah.
We don't know who it is, we don't know who to contact.
When we asked for
No, not
submissions on
before.
this, we asked people to, in the file, in the file to say like artist name dash song title so that we would at least have it there. But what a lot of folks didn't necessarily do is pull their songs into iTunes to see how does it look once a music supervisor actually opens that track. And so a lot of the songs had no other information other than maybe the song title. Some people also didn't label their files with like artist song title. They maybe said just like their name song title. And like that's gonna be really, really hard for someone to like look up and try to find later. So please be incredibly careful that whatever music you're sending is very well labeled, well tagged so that people know like, who is this? How do I find this person again? What's their contact info? Like have that all in there. And don't send waves because they don't retain metadata.
Yeah.
Don't send AIFFs unless you're asked for high-res, but if you are asked for high-res, give AIFFs. They retain metadata, waves do not.
Yeah, unless you're going to give me a wave with the title of the thing is like every bit of information to the name of the file, which is also kind of, don't do that.
So anyway, we don't know who that...
Don't know who that is, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Was that anyone's song in here?
They're not admitting it.
They're not admitting it now. Yeah, now they're not.
It was.
All right, so this is all Valkyrie.
Just on an MP3, how much metadata?
All
All of it.
Yeah.
the
I mean,
metadata.
Is there a
The artist
there is a
field,
good,
the album field, the comments field, put your contact info, like the grouping field, put your contact
Who's your
info.
co-publisher? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, anything that helps us is great.
Yeah, who are the
The more
songwriters, who
information
has a
that's in it, the
publisher.
better.
Yeah.
and you prefer MP3s up front?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, like, do you control the master side or publishing or some combination thereof?
Same.
Like
Yeah.
320 kit, 320
Yeah.
MP3s as opposed to like 120 kit.
Okay, cool. Oh, I think we have promise here. Something like this would definitely work for a first act, second act, bring you to a world. You could do like all this slow-mo shots and show them pulling up the sword and all that stuff. It would work great. It gets a little into the production-wise. It's a little dirgy and a little dirty, like a little more lo-fi than I think we normally go. But I think that for a first act, those drones are really powerful and the voice is really cool. It wouldn't work for a back end. This doesn't really break out into an actual thing. Like if it got into a big treble drum beat or something in the back end, that would help. But that's cool.
The back end stuff tends to be more epic,
Yeah,
big,
music big.
bombastic stuff.
that's like a little sweet. Tonally, it doesn't really play the mystery of the darkness of black magic-y type stuff. It's a little sweet, so that would not go. Fucking cool. It's, so that's Human Ottoman, Robespierre, Last Waltz. Super weird. I wouldn't use it for this brief, but like for something like a Sherlock Holmes type cell where you want to go like, it wants to feel modern but still play the period, I would totally pull that for that. And it's weird enough that it would get its attention grabbing and people would be like, what is this? You know, jarring. So that's cool. This is Pat and Feel You. So this one, okay, what it has going forward is the drone, the pads that it's doing are kind of evocative and otherworldly, but it doesn't do anything and it doesn't have any dynamic, and so it's a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but like from an editorial position, it doesn't give you a lot of places to go. So that would be something that if we were going to use it, if we were like, oh, I'm just in love with this vocal performance or whatever, or the lyrics perfect, we would build an overlay on top of to make it work. But I don't know that this is strong enough to necessitate that we'd be like, we gotta fight for it.
Do you ever have relationships with artists where you can send notes and be like, hey, this is perfect, we need another act?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm constantly looking for those relationships.
Yeah, that's preferred.
Especially if someone's amazing.
So we're running a little low on time, so we are now just going to move into toss us your questions time. So.
Oh, I was just wondering, so at the beginning, you would run through a couple of songs and you hit that second song, it's like, yeah, really cool, not for this brief, but you know, it could come a year later, 2 years later. How often do you end up pulling a song that you listened to 30 seconds like 2 years ago?
A lot.
So,
I mean, we all, we kind of pull this stuff and we make playlists based on kind of what that specific project or need was. And then when we get on a different project and a different need 2 years later, be like, oh, that was kind of a similar search that I did for this other project, and I go right back to that playlist, and I'll go back to those things, because suddenly I'm looking for something different. So I go back to things that pulled months or weeks or years prior all the time, and then that can be when something lands. I've definitely landed something years after it was initially pitched to me.
Is there a best way to like know how to even receive when you're doing searches? Like, I guess from my perspective, I don't even know how to get the email that like this is what we're looking for.
Well, that's where third-party company comes in.
Yeah,
we talked Terrorbird.
We talked a lot about that yesterday. I mean, it's hard for, I mean, not to speak for everybody, but like it's hard for us. We're already buried, so if we had to respond to every single party as an individual artist, send a brief out and go through their submissions, we wouldn't ever be able to do our job. Like, there's just no way that there's just no time to do that. That's why we rely so much on our resources, like a Terrorbird or the publishers or the lawyers, the managers that we have relationships with, because we're trusting their ears to be a filter, to be like, okay, this is what's to your brief, and this is something we know is going to clear for your budget, and what's going to work. And they give it, so there's just so many layers of filtering from the billion songs to like the 15 that I present.
It's a numbers thing at the end of the day. It's if you're dealing with a music agent or master record label or distributor or publisher, their catalog is larger. So the chances that they're going to have something that works for what you're looking for is going to be a lot better than an individual artist that has a 30-song catalog. And that's kind of what it really comes down to.
We talked about it yesterday. Third-party music supervisors generally look to third-party representatives of indie music. So there are companies such as Lauren's company, Terrorbird. So they represent, a lot of times they represent things for one stop, which means they control both the publishing and the master recording. So it's an easy clear, and so they get the briefs from the music supervisors, and they send out stuff that they represent. There's a list of companies that they talked about yesterday. You can find it on
the internet.
The internet.
Check out this thing, the internet. It is fantastic.
There's various companies based in Los Angeles. There's various companies, and steer clear of the ones that try and take your publishing.
Unless they're paying you money for it.
Yeah, yeah. But that's generally how you get the call about what supervisors are looking for. It's very hard for us to take unsolicited stuff from individual artists just for various reasons.
Anything else you would tell people to look out for, like in figuring out who they do want to partner with?
I mean, I always
say avoid people who try to take your publishing, for example.
I mean,
Yeah.
to me,
Anything else that you've noticed?
Yeah.
No, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. We don't do that.
I just feel like, I mean, anybody who's charging you for briefs, first off, I think that's suspect. If they're like, oh, well, if you get a sync, then we own the control of publishing on it, that's heinous. For finding a place that's a good home, I just think like, who are the other artists that are on those things? Look at their rosters on their websites, be like, oh, okay, these 5 bands are on it. And then reach out to those bands and be like, what is your experience with it? Are you guys cool? Are you getting syncs? Sometimes there's companies that the people are just great, they just don't get results. And if you're, you know, I would say 2 things. Don't be afraid of an exclusive deal. There's nothing wrong with being an exclusive deal with somebody. In fact, it's preferred from us because it can be a total headache when we get the same track from 5 different people, and then it goes somewhere, and then they're all calling you angry. How come you didn't clear it with me? Why did I get the email? You know, it's a nightmare, and it's a nightmare for our clients, and it's just ridiculous. So, like, don't be afraid of exclusive. Just make sure that the people you're partnering with are doing their jobs and they're great. And like, you can tell from the bands what the results are getting. Are those bands getting syncs? Like, is your stuff, be really realistic. Is my stuff licensable? Like, what is my actual niche? If I'm doing klezmer music, I can't expect that I'm gonna be getting every brief. Where's my sync money? It's like, well, when we get a klezmer search, you'll get your check. You know, like, so like, just being aware of like what you do and be realistic. You know, not, you know, just if you do Coldplay knockoffs, you're not gonna get the Kanye search. You know, or whatever the thing is. You know.
I tend to say it's also, I mean, it's just like finding a manager or finding a publicist or a booker or any of that stuff. You want to work with people that are passionate about the music that you're making. If you're going to be hiring them to be part of your team, you don't just want to be a cog in the wheel of their machine. You want them to be passionate and care about the art that you're making.
How does Terrorbird accept submissions?
Yeah, we get submissions from folks that we don't know all the time. I mean, we get a lot of submissions from people who we already do know. Maybe a band that we work with has a side project, or the band broke up, and now every member has their own new band, and they're all submitting to us. But then we have a submissions part of our website, terrorbird.com/submissions, and yeah, we get cold call submissions from there all the time. I'll be honest, we pass on most things that come in, just because honestly, a lot of people don't necessarily do the research of researching who are we, like what is our roster like? Does that band actually feel like they would fit in with that roster? I mean, just like any label knows too, when you get submissions, like you know who has done no research on who you are as a company.
And that goes for music writers too, like on 2 fronts. Like I know when I get a pitch from somebody, I'm like, you have no idea what I do. Like, and I can tell because everything in your email is in different fonts. Right. So you can copy paste.
Or they put the wrong name.
Yeah, or you get the wrong name, it happens all the time too. But I mean, this speaks to my laziness as a music supervisor, but like I can, when I break people down in my mind as like, oh, they do that. So like, it may not, for me, it's like, I have composers where like, they may do amazing stuff in this other genre, but forever they are my orchestral people, and that's who I go to in my shorthand for like, shit, I need this done today, that guy's my orchestral guy, you know what I mean? So,
it's great to have a niche.
Yeah, so niche is not a bad thing.
Very good at one thing, as opposed to being okay at a lot of different sounds.
Yeah.
Is music with samples, like unclear samples, is that definitely a deal breaker?
Deal breaker.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if the sample was cleared, it's a deal breaker, depending on the situation and the timeline you have.
I'm really sorry to report that we're out of time, but maybe if anyone wants to loiter outside, we can continue some of this conversation so that they can prep the room for the next panel. But thank you so much to these amazing music supervisors for... enough to be part of this.
Yes.
Do you have a business card? Are you local?
I am local, and I don't have a business card because we just.
Do you want to take a crowd shot?
We just
see how
reformed.
many people are in here.
Yeah, I think I maybe met through Idaho Media Professionals, maybe, or maybe
I'm going to look at the documentary. Let me get a front shot.
Oh.
did the documentary on Idaho's Forgotten War. It was on PBS.
Oh, yes. Yeah, where was that you were talking about?
I'm sorry, what was that? Now, let me get another shot. Okay. Is that it?